Hi everyone, Constantine here, and wow, looks like I've totally messed with the contrast of this webcam, but I just plugged it in. I literally am this reflective. Anyway, I'm not gonna worry about it. I'm doing another film review today. Yay! And I know that it's been a while since I put one of these up, and I don't put them out anywhere near as fast as a lot of my subscribers would like, but the reason for this, and there is a reason for this, is because I put quite a bit of research into a lot of my film reviews, and typically also try to write a critical essay to accompany it, which I post on my blog. So all of that actually does end up taking quite a bit of work. So I can't just crank these things out every single day. But I do have 3 that I'm working on right now, in addition to a collaboration review that I'm working on with a fellow YouTuber. So I've got some stuff planned, some stuff in the works, as it were. So, hang in there, and we'll definitely keep going with this series. So today I'm going to be talking about a 2005 ninja film that I saw not too long ago called Shinobi, Heart Under Blade. That's the American title, or just Shinobi. It's based off a very old novel series called the Kowa Ninja Scrolls. Well, not really that old, from the 50s. But this story has been adapted into a manga 3 times, I believe, and it has also most recently been adapted into a TV anime series called Basilisk. So if you guys watch anime, I don't really watch anime anymore, but if you do, you've probably heard of this series of stories under the name Basilisk. This film, however, was directed by Shimoyama Ten, and he is not a very well-known director. He's fairly new. My first, and I suppose I've only really seen 2 other things he's done, but my first time seeing one of his films, I saw St. John's Wort, which is a Japanese horror film from 2001. He directed that. The Japanese title for that film is Odagiri. And you can definitely tell just from seeing Shinobi and St. John's Wort his style. He is definitely a very poppy modern director. Digital cameras and a lot of computer graphics, CG, excuse me. He really likes that. And personally, as someone who has a love for all things old movies, old books, old men, I find it a little off-putting when films use so much computer graphics. It's just, I find it very, very distracting overall from the film itself. That's his style, and if you like that, then this is kind of for you. It's a very poppy, hip, young sort of movie. It was probably produced by the Japanese equivalent of MTV. It's that sort of film, and I can't really imagine many Japanese people over the age of 16, 17 really having much of an interest in watching this film. It almost feels like they made a movie and kind of geared it towards the Western audience, the foreign audience who's interested in anime and that whole martial arts, oriental mystique that gets associated with ninja and everything. Because not many Japanese people that I've ever encountered have this sort of very mystic, ultra cool view of ninja, because historically speaking they did not have that sort of reputation or presence. So it's a very simple story, and within the first 2 minutes of the film you basically you can predict the entire movie. There are 2 ninja clans, the Iga and the Koga, and they've been enemies for centuries. And unfortunately, a member of the Koga ninja clan, Genosuke, falls in love with the daughter of the Iga clan, Oboro, and their star-crossed love is going to end somewhat tragically, because it takes place around the 1614, after Tokugawa Ieyasu finally defeated the last remnants of the supporters of the Toyotomi clan, and has unified Japan, and so begins the 250 years of peaceful rule under the Tokugawa shogunate. This is bad news for the ninja clan, though, because there's no longer much of a use for them. It's simplistic. The whole movie I found somewhat cheesy. The dialogue and the plot line was somewhat cheesy. The character designs and the costumes were somewhat cheesy. Basically, every character kind of... It seems like they fulfill some sort of like anime stereotype. You have the very effeminate guy with long hair who is wearing makeup and he fights with like hair wire, and then you've got the sexy woman, the sort of femme fatale whose kiss is poison because she's been fed poison ever since she was a little girl. That character actually really reminded me of a character from this old anime called Ninja Scroll. If you guys have seen it, you know which character I'm talking about. And the acting also was fairly cheesy. They cast Odagiri as the main character, Genosuke, and they cast Nakama Yukie as Oboro, his female love interest. And I'm sorry if you guys like have like a teen crush on Odagiri. I don't like him. I think that he's very stupid, and I hate his hair. Something that I did find fairly amusing about this film is its portrayal of Tokugawa Ieyasu. Tokugawa Ieyasu is totally pimping it up in 1614, yo. That's all I have to say about him. Tokugawa Ieyasu is a pimp. Yeah. But yeah, so I mean, there's no innovation in this film. And this film is pretty much like every other, like, sort of ninja film I've seen. It buys into that whole ninja crap. So if you like ninja crap, then watch this movie. I just really find it interesting that this film it's a Japanese production, and it's all Japanese people. Japanese people made it, wrote it, everything. But it buys into this whole like East Asian ninja martial arts mystique, and I find it really interesting that it buys into this. So there's this term called Orientalism, which was coined by a very, very, very famous sort of critic, historian, theorist from like the 1950s called Edward Said, and he wrote this book called Orientalism, where he was basically talking about how this whole idea of Asia and this whole idea of the Oriental that we in the West have, you know, it's a product of Western minds looking in to Asia. And so all of the stereotypes that are associated with it, and just the images that we associate with the East, is not exactly what it's not in any way what East Asia really is. It's a construct of the Western mind. And so he basically talks about how Orientalism and the idea of Asia in and of itself is a constructed concept. It is just something we basically, from the Western perspective, like imagined and made up. And it does not necessarily have anything to do with East Asia itself. It's the Western mind looking into a non-Western culture. So it's just really, really interesting that you have a Japanese production company with Japanese actors, and it's written by a Japanese person, the script is written by a Japanese person, totally embracing this Oriental mystique. So I just find like this is a very interesting movie that sort of epitomizes this concept of Orientalism that was first talked about by Edward Said, and I'll link his book in the sidebar if you want to watch. And that's going to end my rant on this movie. I don't particularly like it, and it definitely isn't a classic of any sort of, it's not a classic Japanese film, but it certainly is interesting when you watch it in context to how does the West perceive Japan, how does Japan perceive itself nowadays, and how much of that is influenced by how the West has perceived Japan for hundreds of years. So I guess it's just an interesting question to ask yourself, and everyone's going to have a different opinion about this, and I'm not even saying that what my opinion is, I'm not even saying my opinion is right, but it's just interesting to think about it. So that's all for now. I'm going to put up another review soon. It's going to be Kobayashi's 1962 film, Harakiri, one of my favorite films ever. But until then, peace, have a good day.